Hello, my name is Providencia Bergeron, and this is the critical reflection for my ACE Media Studies magazine. For my genre, I picked a music magazine as music is something I've liked my whole life and I know a lot about, and my target audience is Americans ages 14 to 40 who have an interest in music. Here are some conventional covers of my genre. As you can see, the artists are all in full body poses in a colorful background. And a trope that I've noticed in my genre is that newer, up-and-coming artists tend to have their whole body in the cover, while more well-known, recognizable artists tend to have a closer picture of their face. This is because their faces are well-known and recognizable, and readers need visual interest for artists who are up-and-coming, as all of these artists were at the time of the release of these magazines. In all these covers, the masthead is at the top with the artist underneath it. Their name is somewhere near their picture with a description of the lead article near the name. The cover lines are also out of the way of the artist. This is my cover, a full body image of my subject in a dynamic pose to create visual interest as he is a rising star. The magenta color scheme of the cover is also eye-catching, something that will be needed, as I stated previously, not only to attract readers, but because Travis's face will not be recognizable to the average person. I chose the masthead name Apollo for multiple reasons. I wanted a space motif for my magazine, with the idea of the music being out of this world. However, it also needed to tie back to music. I chose Apollo because Apollo is the Roman god of music, something personal to me as a Latin magnet student at Northeast. Additionally, the Apollo 11 is a spacecraft that put men on the moon. And on top of that, the Apollo Theater in Harlem, New York is a famous theater where many artists have been discovered. I chose my date line to be January 2025 as a lot of music magazines come out monthly, which is what I decided to do for mine. The cover lines featured on my magazine are about other popular artists such as Tyler the Creator and Childish Gambino. I put them off to the side in a sans serif font to not distract from my main image. The title of the article is in bold, and I also provided the page number so that readers could easily access the article that they want to read. My lead article is about Travis Gibson, and following the conventions of my genre, I put his name in a large script font. I did this to follow visual hierarchy, as that is something that I want my viewers to look at first. Underneath is a short description of the article, The Unconventional Rise of a Star. You may also notice that I don't have a barcode, and that is because I want my magazine to be distributed exclusively digitally. This is a conventional table of contents, and the main image is usually the same person who was the main image of the cover. Contents is written at the top, and the featured articles are shown below. There's also a caption for the image in the bottom left corner. I broke a few conventions for my table of contents, but there are some things that I kept conventional. The image in my table of contents is the same as the image in my cover, and the title of the page is similar to my masthead, but it's not the same. It still has the same wavy or retro style. I also use the same font that I used for my cover lines in the table of contents. My lead article is the largest on the page, again following visual hierarchy and labeled on the cover. Theme picture, not only to match the color scheme of the cover, but also because, again, it is eye-catching to the reader. I chose one page for my table of contents because I wanted to keep it as concise as possible. Most music magazines have advertisements and dedications in them, which lead to such a large amount of pages. Since my magazine would be digital, the advertisements and dedications would most likely be on the website itself and not inside of the magazine. Another spot where I broke conventions would be the amount of stories that I have featured. Most music magazines usually have 2 to 3 featured stories and then 10 smaller stories. I decided to keep 6 bigger articles, focusing on quality instead of quantity. My magazine would have 60 pages, which is not a low amount, but on the smaller side due to the absence of dedications and ads. Here is a conventional double-page spread with 1 large image of the topic of the article and 4 smaller images relating to the topic. I actually decided to go with a triple-page spread. Originally, I had a double-page spread, but I could only fit 1 picture and my article. When I noticed that it was conventional to have multiple images, I decided to switch to a triple-page spread. Following conventions, I have 1 large image of the subject of the article, Travis Gibson, and 3 images about the article inside. The title of my article is on the second page, using a sans serif font for most of the title, but the biggest word, stardom, with a purple script font for emphasis. The article itself covers multiple topics, starting with Travis's relationship with music, being drawn to it from a very young age, starting producing music at just 14 years old. The article then continues to speak about how, by the age of 19, Travis had been steadily dropping singles on SoundCloud, amassing a small fan base. In October of 2024, he was given a shout-out by rapper Doechii in an interview, and she talked about how she liked his album Retrospect. There are quotes from Travis about the meaning of his album and how he hopes to create music that lasts without even having lyrics. The music is an instrumental mix of 80s R&B, modern music, and classical instruments, something unheard of to chart. How does my product represent social groups or issues? There are a few social issues within the music magazine genre. Magazines tend to overlook independent or smaller artists, instead favoring those who are already household names. My article highlights how Travis is a self-made artist who rose to prominence through dedication and independent production. He started off from SoundCloud closet recordings to getting deals with Capitol Records. Additionally, the genre tends to look over the unglamorous parts of being a small musician, and I highlight Travis's modest beginnings, like I said, being a SoundCloud artist and recording in his closet and dealing with the issues of living in a small apartment. There are also several stereotypes in the music industry and in music magazines that have been challenged by my article. While I myself am not Black, it has been well reported that there is an issue with representation of Black artists being pigeonholed into certain genres like hip-hop or rap, or stereotyped in their representation. Travis's work is portrayed with nuance. His genre is not constrained by hip-hop or R&B and rap. He mixes 80s R&B, modern sounds, and classical instruments to make a sound of his own. There are also gender stereotypes that are defied in my article. Male artists are often portrayed as dominant, rebellious, or emotionless, and Travis is portrayed with emotional depth, talking openly about loneliness, personal growth, and his inner thoughts. Lastly, there is an emphasis on creativity over commercial success, which is what magazines usually prioritize. Travis's music is largely instrumental and pushes back against the notion that success only comes through catchy, lyric-heavy pop tracks. How does my product engage with audiences, and how would it be distributed? The biggest factor
used several
in my
different
magazine
strategies
reaching
to appeal
audiences
to my target
would be
audience.
social media.
In the beginning of the year,
It's important
I
for
surveyed
magazine
29
companies to
people
have a social
ages
media because
14
it
to
helps them
40
connect with
who
their
have an
audience in
interest
real
in
time
music.
and reach a
I
wider
asked
group of
what
people.
their favorite genre of music
Social
was,
media
which
platforms allow
56% of
magazines
them
to share
said
their
hip-hop
content
and
instantly,
R&B.
which builds a loyal
31%
community
said they would
and
be
helps
most
attract new
interested
readers who
in
may
learning
not
about
discover the
new music
magazine through
releases from
traditional
a music
methods.
magazine.
There are many popular
79%
magazines
of
in my
participants
genre
are avid
that have
music
used social
listeners,
media to
listening
connect
to
with
music
their fans.
multiple
Rolling
times per
Stone
day
has a
as
strong
often as
presence on
possible.
Instagram, Twitter,
With
and
the
TikTok,
results of my survey
where they share
showing that
interviews,
majority of
breaking news,
participants
and
preferred
behind-the-scenes
hip-hop and
content
R&B,
of the magazine.
I based my magazine
Billboard
around
also
that.
uses social
The
media
artist
to
on my
promote
cover
its charts
is an
and
R&B
exclusive
fusion
artist
artist,
content.
and my cover lines have articles
For a
about
small
artists like
digital-only
Tyler, the
magazine
Creator,
company
and
like
Childish
mine,
Gambino,
having a social media
popular
presence
artists
is
in these
crucial
genres.
because it can help build
The demographics
visibility.
for a magazine like
We'd be able to
Billboard
cut down
is an
the
even
high
split
cost of
between
traditional
male and
marketing
female
and
readers.
interact directly
82%
with
of them
followers,
being college
creating a
graduates
wider
from the
audience.
United States
It's also
and
a
being
great way
ages
to establish
25
a
to
unique
34.
voice and brand identity.
My target
Here,
audience
I
is
shown two
Americans
examples
ages 14
of
to
social
40
media
years old
that would be
with an
used
interest
for
in
the
music
Apollo
and
magazine.
especially
On the left is a
R&B and
fabricated
hip-hop.
Instagram screenshot.
That would be Gen
talking
Z
about
and
Travis's
millennials,
first show
which are two
of his
generations
national tour
that are
for the
considered very
Retrospect album.
online.
On
My
the
magazine
left
appeals to
is an
this by
example
being
of a
fully
TikTok
digital.
screenshot of the same thing.
Additionally,
These
those
two
genres
platforms
have been
are
around
vital
for
in the
several
success
generations,
of any company,
appealing to
reaching their
a wide
audience
range of
and
ages.
feeling relatable to them. As stated previously, my magazine would be exclusively digital. On this day and age, people are on their phones more than ever, and personally, I rarely see people reading physical media. Publishing my magazine digitally also lowers costs, eliminating the expenses of printing, paper, and distribution. Having my magazine be distributed digitally is also eco-friendly, reducing the environmental impact associated with paper production and waste. To access my magazine, readers would have to visit a website and pay a monthly subscription, or they could pay for just one issue. This website is also where I'd put the advertisements for my magazine, as well as any dedications. I'd be trying to reach Gen Z and millennials, which are the people who are most on social media. I wouldn't expect anyone under the age of 14 to be on social media, and those over the age of 40, while a lot of them are on social media, are not as active. How did my production skills develop over the course of this project? First of all, I improved my skills in photography and lighting. I took the pictures for my magazine right after Christmas when I had just received a sunset lamp. I used this lamp to achieve the colorful effect in my photos. However, using different colors of lights made me realize things. When I use the green light, like the picture on the left, my subject looks washed out. Everything is the same color and blends into one another. But when I use the purple light on the right, you can see each individual color, and my subject's skin glows instead of blending into the background. These pictures also show me improving my practice with angles. On the left, I took an eye-level shot of the subject, closer to his face, but on the right, I went for a lower angle, showing almost his entire body. I learned which angles, colors, and lighting look best for the effect that I'm trying to achieve. I also learned basic editing skills on Photoshop. I learned how to remove backgrounds from images, download fonts, and download stamps to use in Photoshop. Originally, I wanted my lead article to be about concert etiquette and its noticeable decline in recent years. However, as I looked for references for sketches of my cover, I realized that that wasn't something that lead articles in music magazines were usually about, so I switched to writing my lead article about Travis. You can still see the remnants of this idea in my project, with one of my cover lines being about concert etiquette. How did I integrate software, technologies, and hardware for this project? For majority of my project, I used my school-issued laptop, which did cause some limitations because they are a little bit slow and the screen is small, so it's hard to see my design. But I did do majority of the designing of my magazine on the computer, uploading my blog on the computer, and researching on the school-issued computer. I used my iPhone to take pictures of my subject for my magazine, and I used a sunset lamp to get the lighting that I wanted. The applications I used were Photoshop to edit and design my magazine, PowerPoint to create this slideshow for this video, and CapCut to put my voice behind this video. I also used several websites for this project. I used Pinterest to create the mood board for my magazine and get inspiration by finding other magazine covers on Pinterest. I used Zoob for the template for my fake Instagram and TikTok posts for this slideshow. I used Canva to create the fake TikTok and Instagram posts and design their layout. And I used Google Sites to upload my blog and Google Drive to store the pictures that I took so I could access them on my school computer.